Yeah, I guess I'll start, and then we can pick a chair today. Welcome. This is the State Building Code Council BRFW committee for September 12th, 2025. Our chair, Roger Harenga, is not going to be here today. So let's take roll first, and then we can pick a chair for today.
So Roger Harenga is absent. Todd Baber there.
Here.
Dan Young.
Here.
Angela Haupt.
Not seeing her online, but she said she's got a committee meeting till 9:30 and will be traveling, so she'll be in and out and maybe have some spotty connection, but she's planning on joining in here in about 30 minutes.
Katie Sheehan.
Here.
And Tom Handy.
Here.
So that is 4 of you, which makes a quorum.
Okay. Would anyone like to volunteer or nominate a chair for today?
I'd nominate Todd. He does such a great job on this duty.
I second that.
I figured you were going to say that, Tom. Thank you. Okay, I accept. Any other nominations? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public like to be recognized today? Go ahead, Patrick.
Yes, thank you. This is Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington.
Welcome, Patrick. I see Corey. Welcome.
Thanks, Todd. I know you guys have been busy and I've been busy, so we haven't connected. So I'm just kind of here to listen in. If I have any questions, if you don't mind, I just raise my hand. If that's okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, seeing no other hands. Agenda item 2. Oh, go ahead. Speak up.
I
ahead, Jim.
don't know. I'm not smart enough to raise my hand with one of those fancy little pop-ups. Jim Profit with Access Home in regard to the adult family home IRC building code interpretation.
Perfect. Thank you. Welcome. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 2 is review and approve the agenda. We have a motion to approve.
I motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Dan, then Tom. Any proposed changes? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Item 3, review and approve the minutes from July 18th. I think they're available. Is that right, Dustin?
They are available. I'm updating the share now. Okay, we should see this minutes from July 18th.
Okay, as we're scrolling, we hear a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes from July 18th as presented.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Tom, and then Katie. Okay, any proposed edits? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Minutes for July 18th are approved. Okay, we have a few items today. I think we can be pretty efficient here, but the first one's the most important, and you know, we can do this without Angela, although, do we want to?
Well, I mean, it is the most important business we have for the meeting today to get make sure that these keep moving through the process. You know, the TAG has met diligently over the past month or so to review the existing amendments and significant changes reports. So I have there's a few small edits to those reports made by the TAG. So I have those for today's meeting as part of the package to move back towards the council. And also the code change proposals, we worked through those, and we have solid recommendations on them. And so it's all illustrated in the spreadsheet. So I think we could embark on that one and then, you know, try to just knock the agenda out in order.
Okay.
But I'm not opposed to waiting for Angela, but she's also let me know that she might have some spotty service, so it
Okay.
might not do us any good to wait.
And we did just approve the agenda. So, okay, so for everyone listening, this is a major step in the process, significant body of work here by the IRC, the Residential Technical Advisory Group. They did an outstanding job on a very tight time frame. So it was an enormous commitment. This step is important to take the recommendation from the technical advisory group, and this is the first time that in the standing committee that the council members are taking action on this. So the action will be to forward this recommendation to the council to take action. I think we're scheduled for September 25th, which then gets us to our filing date on October 1st. So while changes can be made here, if there are any is desire to make any amendments or changes to the recommendation, that can happen. I think we'll bring the spreadsheet up, right, Dustin?
If that's the plan, I'll show the
Um,
spreadsheet with the proposals, and if we want to open up any of those, we can do that as well.
Okay. But the most important step is to get it to the council to take action, which also can include amendments and to get it into CR 102 filing for public process. So with that, should we open up the spreadsheet?
Yeah, I have it ready to go.
Just for kind of commentary, were there any intakes on letters or testimony at this stage between the IRC recommendation and now?
If any intakes on letters, which letters are you maybe speaking on?
Just in any proposed changes received?
No, sir.
Okay.
The only thing that wasn't discussed by the tag is included down here at the bottom of the spreadsheet. It was a proposal that came in within the appropriate time period, but was missed by staff and the proponent getting that through to the tag to deliberate. The tag had it on the agenda to potentially discuss at the last meeting where we were moving this forward, and the tag did not take action on this proposal or review it very much. So I have it here today for the committee to make a determination on what the fate of that proposal should be.
Okay.
And
Obviously, I can give thank you for that one. That's not what I was referring to, but while we're on that, you see my name on there. Actually, Dustin, may I request that you put the proponent Erica Spiritos on there, and then, but I'll be very transparent that SPIR, I don't remember.
I'm gonna pop open the proposal and
just for transparency, obviously I would recuse myself from any action on that. If we can take that one separate. And then I did assist this nonprofit on how to get this through. So
okay.
sorry to do that while
Okay.
we're
No worries.
okay. So a reason I asked is I received a call and I was trying to give background on this process to someone else. But if we didn't receive anything, then I think they took my advice to raise that to the council or to the CR 102 process.
Okay.
Okay.
So running through, we had a total of 44 proposals that, well, that might be slightly off. I don't have numbers all the way down. About 42 proposals for the tag to consider. And out of those, the ones labeled here in red are ones that the tag denied moving forward. And in our new RCW that's active for this code cycle, any proposal that that's referred to the tag that is not then come back up with the blessing from the tag isn't allowed to be heard by the committees or the council. So you'll notice that the rows are filled out in red all the way through the committee action and council action columns. And so we're here to move most of these proposals that are on screen here to the council, and notes in here I guess they don't all reference the revision that is moving forward, but for reference, if they have multiple revisions, the revision that's moving forward should be listed in the tag committee action column anything that doesn't have a revision in here, the original proposal is what was moved forward by the tag. And we had good consensus on all these proposals. We went through the tag process and reviewed them one by one, made a motion to approve it as indicated on the green sheet. And then at the very last meeting, we approved this as a package to move up to the building, fire, residential, and WUI code committee. And so we got some good input on these, and I'm happy to bring this to the committee today.
So you might have said this, Dustin, I wasn't paying attention, but under the new 2024 Act, we can no longer take action on something that was denied at the tag level, but we can flag. So if something is green, we can flag it for more questions, or we can move it forward to the council and with a flag, but still recommended in the package, or we could potentially at this stage choose to deny it.
Correct.
So
Sorry, so the council could still act on it, but the committee can't.
No.
Well, no, I'm sorry. If you're asking about, sorry to jump in front of you there, Dustin. If the tag chooses not to recommend, essentially deny a petition under the new 24 Act, we can no longer consider it past that. So the committee or the council. So that's what Justin's showing in red there.
Okay, so
Yeah.
these red ones, okay.
In the past, there was precedent that the committee could overrule the recommendation or denial from the tag.
And this is only at the CR 102 level. CR 101.
It doesn't contain any code language.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so the CR 101 says we're going to do some work on codes. CR 102 contains the proposed changes. If the tag doesn't move them forward, we can't entertain those any longer. If they did move them forward and say the committee denied them, the council could still choose to adopt at that level. And so it's only the tag. If they bar it at the tag, it doesn't come back up at all. And the main, and I guess maybe not the main, but the one thing I'd point out is that this particular petition here at the bottom didn't get the benefit of being referred down to the tag. And so, the question is, what does the committee want to do with that proposal? They want to review it today or deny it, but we can get to that when it's maybe more appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
So the question for the committee then is, and we do have this open for public comment. Are there any petitions after review that you want to discuss, potentially of concern, that should be flagged or proposed to deny? And if before I open up for public comment, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I was kind of curious. I wasn't able to attend any of these tag meetings, but were there any that were kind of on the fence, so to speak, but did pass?
No, not to my recollection. Anything that was brought up as concerns by the tag was resolved via the revisions that came through. And so I feel like everybody was in major agreement in what's being proposed to move forward here at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
And without having Angela here, we do have at least one tag member, so I'm happy to open it up for any commentary on the process if desired.
So Todd, I was the alternate chair on this and I went to most
Okay.
of the meetings. So
Forgot about the things.
yeah. I think all the discussions were very robust and like Dustin said, there were some, if you just look at the things, there a couple of them were 2, some were 3 revisions. But I think they're pretty much unanimous. There are a few that were 1 or 2 dissenters, but overall it's pretty much ready to go.
Okay, thank you. And with that, Patrick, go ahead and add commentary, but also feel free to speak on any particular petition if desired.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so speaking on behalf of BIW, but also I was a tag member. I think the tag did a really good job trying to move quickly through everything and give everybody a fair chance to speak to their proposal and submit revisions if need be, and tried to work through all that as quickly as possible. Our goal was to complete everything by the end of August, but we got everything done by the first week of September. I'm trying to keep the council on schedule with the code adoption process. And there wasn't a lot of contentious proposals. I think everything that was approved had a lot of support, and there's not any proposal that was approved that would have a major cost impact or major concerns. So support the committee in moving forward this package to the council. The one proposal that was brought up at the end, we didn't discuss it, didn't take action on it because we didn't really have time to review it at that point. And if we didn't feel like approving it, that would make it so the council couldn't consider it. So we felt it best to leave it to the committee and council's determination on how to move forward with that. So thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And if it's okay, maybe let's just deal with that purple one, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So the one that happened to fall between the seats of the mail truck for fun has my name on it. So I'm happy to step away and be a proponent, represent the proponent here if there's a desire. As Patrick said, it was introduced for if the IRC wanted to make a recommendation or at least consider it. I think they made a good decision of saying, well, because of process, it wasn't officially referred to either this committee or to the tag, even though it was submitted on time. So I think it's really up to the committee to decide. It was introduced at IBC just so they were at least aware that this also was out there. And if you open it up, Dustin, if it's okay, and then I'll step away from the perception that I'm influencing this.
I can show. I'm waiting for the Word document to open. It's
Okay.
it's a network drive. Most of the meeting materials are on my computer, except for all of the proposals. I didn't have time to download them all.
Okay.
But while we're waiting on that one, here is the proposal.
Maybe I should ask first, would the committee like to hear about this?
I would.
Okay. Oh, and Angela's here. Good. Welcome.
Hey, I have a quick question. Because of the state legislation that says that a proposal can't be considered unless it's been approved or referred by the tag, is this going to have to go back to the tag before anything can happen? Because for that, it seems like we can't do anything. Does that make sense?
I believe that they say they should be referred down to the tag. This one didn't get referred, so as Patrick said, if the tag had denied it, denied any input on it, for sure we couldn't look at it, but we're looking at it now and asking the committee if they want to take action on it. And I guess that action could include sending it back to the IRC tag, but we are, in the 11th hour on this one. And, as I understand, this is getting ahead of some potential expected legislation. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I can go into the content of it, but Angela, when we did meet on this, and we did get some counsel on it, the RCW says that the petitions, can be referred down to either the committee or the tag. So the question really here just has to be the committee and the council making a decision on whether they want to take action on this without that referral. And then essentially it's going to be a council level action.
Okay, that's fine. I was just wanted some clarification. Thanks. I'd love to hear about it.
Okay, so now I'll step down and be a proponent for just 30 seconds here. So this is it actually is a very straightforward one. This is a petition that's happening in both the IRC and the IBC. Same language at the 2027 ICC level. It's passed their initial committees, passed passed the IRC committee. I think I have it in the notes there. I'm going by memory, 10-0 and IBC 12-1 or per memory. What it does is it simply introduces new ICC MBI, Modular Building Institute standards that were developed for offsite construction. So there are 3 of them, as you see there, 1200, 1205, and 1210. 1200 is really the design and the manufacturing standard. The 1205 is targeting more the inspection and the building and fire officials, so forth, the regulatory piece. And then 1210 is the MEP. There will be another one that's underway right now, 1215, that's not included in here for tiny homes, but really this is a reference, is pointing to the reference standard, so it puts it both in the code in section R301, and then the blue, it's a little unusual in proposing code here, but I just put it as the IBC section would be IBC 3117 in the Washington amendments. So, and then it adds to both the reference standards chapters, chapter 44 and IRC, and chapter 35 and IBC.
And just a quick question, are these would be new sections in the model code? These aren't amending existing sections in the model code, is that correct?
No, well, let me think about that. I believe they're new sections, but the numbering is different than in the model code.
Okay.
Because we have additional state amendments that bump them down.
Okay.
I think that's right. No, yes, new subsections. Let's say it that way. And then just as background, some states deal with this in different structures at the agency level, administrative level. Some of them, like ours, it seems more appropriate to put them in the code.
So these are pretty much verbatim for what we'll see in the model code in a couple of years anyway, correct?
Yeah, correct. I did not make any proposed Washington amendments to the 27. So it would be bringing them forward 3 years. If they're adopted, right? I don't think they've gone through final adoption at that ICC level, but they've gone through the committees. Is that correct, Angela? And did I say that correct on the group?
Yes.
B? Okay.
Yeah.
And Todd, what would be some of the consequences if this committee chose not to adopt and the council didn't adopt this? What would be the consequence for Washingtonians, and what would the hardship be?
One, it would probably be asked for in a legislative mandate coming in January. I know the groups that are active, particularly, I don't represent them, but I'm trying to help them. So there's a HUD sponsored King County Housing Development Consortium. I think that's correct. They're leading a regional effort, especially in around the metro area of Seattle, to bring offsite pathways into the code. This is submitted by MassTech, which just happens to be a subset of interested parties that do prefabrication, mass timber. So the alternative is it's often looks like alternative materials design and methods with the actual jurisdiction project by project basis and this brings a surety to the manufacturers that they have a pathway that parallels what we think of as labor and industry and pre-manufactured homes, but brings it into actual code projects. Anyone kind of understand it differently? I would say it's alternative materials design and methods pathway.
And this won't step on the labor and industries manufactured division?
No, well, there can be part of this. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but if you think of labor and industry, especially they're thought of as mainly when HUD code is applied to manufactured homes. It's still a little fuzzy when they get involved. It's by manufacturer how they get involved in projects that are under the IRC or the IBC. So the answer is yes, but not always. I mean, and the answer is not yes, that it interferes. They're part of the process of trying to integrate this into.
They might be using the same standards and just they take what
They might be used as the
okay.
for the inspection and so forth. Yeah. And if I fumbled that, please anyone correct me. Okay, so I'll step away, but it's got to be action by the committee for a motion or.
So if you're stepping down, can we get a volunteer for chair for this discussion? Or a nomination?
If nobody else nominates, I'll step in.
Okay. I think that appoints you as chair pro tem for this discussion topic of
Pro tem. Yep.
pro tem. Yeah.
Ooh, my business cards are going to get big. So, okay. So, I don't think we're ready for a motion yet. I do have a question myself on the L&I part that I just want to make sure that we're not stepping on their toes, because then that gets into a whole another realm of complications. Does anybody know if they follow these reference standards at all? Go ahead, Todd.
So, yes, and in fact, one thing we could do if it was desired to move it forward is, since we have a labor and industry liaison, make sure that that's fully connected in before the council would take action in the package. But I also could do more homework and have them actually weigh in. So yes, they have been engaged with that King County Housing Development Consortium group.
So if we do make a motion to move this forward, all we're doing is moving it forward to the council, and then more discussion can happen.
Correct. We could line item it and still have input, make sure that's contingent, and then that it's line itemed in the council meeting. Yeah.
Because from my, this is obviously the first time really reading this. I think it's done right. But you always want to have voices talk about it. So, and Angela's still here. What are your thoughts on this, Angela?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it. I don't know the answer to the L&I question either, because they do their own thing, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it made it through the first kind of round for ICC. So I mean, I believe it looks like it's going to end up in the 27 codes. So yeah, I think it looks right.
Okay.
So yeah.
Then there's always a procedural part, Dustin, that we have had this out that the public can look at it.
Well, so this has been posted for several, or not several, but for a couple IRC tag meetings.
Okay.
This went up early on with the posting for this meeting, and it's included in the spreadsheets, posted on our code cycle page as well. So it's been out there, and I haven't received any comment on this one in particular, other than to discuss what is the most proper way to handle this, if we handle it at all.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, Patrick had a comment before me, if you want to take that.
Oh, I missed his. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Patrick.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask a question. This is the first time this is being discussed in detail, and I was trying to read through it and understand it. It talks about it being sort of editorial or clarifying in nature, but I'm just trying to understand kind of what will this change? Like, if this, what's the current process for these products now, and how would that be different if this was adopted?
I'm happy to give a response to that. Yeah, I think the most common example of this is say there's a manufacturer that is framing, let's say stick frame walls or cold form steel walls, right? Right now, those walls typically come into the job site, what we call open, because they have to be inspected on the job site. Maybe you can add sheathing or so forth, but again, that has to get inspected on the site. You can't, it's hard to, start to close them, add in other layers of insulation and so forth without the inspection in the factory. Well, L&I typically covers a 6-sided box and puts the gold seal on there, and then that relieves the jurisdiction in the pre-agreement of who does what inspections. That's harder when you get to a panelized system, for example. So that's the most common case that led to establishing these standards.
So like you said earlier, Todd, it'd be a alternate means and method type of thing if this doesn't go through.
Yeah, so say I am a manufacturer and I'm not doing prefabricated, walls. In order to put sheetrock and all this other, that's a much bigger lift in coordination with the jurisdiction. It might even require the jurisdiction coming in and doing inspections if they agree to it at every stage of framing, sheathing, whatever it might be, before you close that panel up. Instead of having a third party or L&I or somebody else do that inspection. Still in agreement with the jurisdiction, it's just now it's codified with an actual standard referenced.
Okay. Go ahead, Tom.
How would that work with like embedded electrical systems that L&I would have to inspect, or somebody else anyway?
I'm not sure I'm the full expert on this. I mean, that's the intent of 1210 standard, but I probably can't speak exactly to, whether it's L&I, whether it's the state, whether it's the jurisdiction inspecting or a third party, right? That's kind of getting into, they could reference these standards now and then the actual code, the code reference also.
Okay. If anybody's ready for a motion, I'd make a motion based on a condition.
Tom, I'm sorry to interfere here, but Ken probably can speak to this.
Okay.
With some knowledge and answer your question. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay.
No,
Okay.
well, I guess I'm sorry. My question is about, Todd, were you aware that there's 2 comments for this code change proposal at the national level that are being proposed?
I am not.
Okay, so there's 2 comments that haven't been considered yet, and I'm just wondering if the committee might want to take a look at those first to see if it's going to impact their decision making, since this isn't, obviously it's not quite gone through all of the process yet, since there's 2 additional comments. And I didn't know if they've changed proposal to change the modular component definition, and also in the compliance section, the 301.1.5.1, there's some additional language that's been proposed as comments. So I think you guys should be just addressing that, because it could change this proposal.
No, that's a good point.
Ken, do you know what the action timeline on that might be by chance?
Well, I could defer to Angela, but I think that the meeting's next month or this, I can't remember how many weeks away it is. Not too far.
October.
Yeah, October.
Middle of October is when the second set of hearings are on that, but that's only the second committee action, because it's beginning of next year that then they have the public comment hearings also.
Okay, so this is close, but not quite across the finish line then.
Right.
At the national level. Okay. And then Katie, you had your hand up for a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I was still kind of wrapped up in the L&I, like the effect on L&I. So would this would reduce L&I's requirements to come in, and so the question I guess I would have is, do they want that? And maybe Todd, you've already done some of that, but that was where I was going. But if we want to continue to like talk about Ken's comment, I'm I'm interested in that as well.
Okay. Todd?
Yeah,
your
I guess maybe if no action or any action was taken, I think I will anyway go to the proponent and to LNI and try to get them to weigh in. And then addressing Ken's, I think that's important that we would be able to show if there were changes even in the second hearings at the ICC level, that would be brought forward in the CR 102 if it was still in play. And then I think the proponent better bring forward, because there are other states that have adopted these already, so that might also be useful information just to see X number of states have adopted it in this manner, in this form. So I'll do that regardless of the action.
So to me, it brings up a question of, if we have a motion and we move it forward, we could, at the building code council, we could then still make changes.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Or even at that time, we could just say no, right? I mean,
Right.
yes or no, or yes with conditions, that type of thing. Okay. Patrick.
Yeah, I think technically the council this never came before the council for like any kind of action. So, like, I don't even think the council technically accepted it. So, and I don't know what the process is for how it impacts it, but I don't necessarily think that the committee has to take an action for the council to consider it unless the committee wants to provide a recommendation of sorts. If that makes sense.
Todd.
Trying to really hard to stay as a proponent here.
Oh, I know. I know.
I think it does make sense, Patrick. I think you're right, and that's kind of what we've been exploring, is there could be a no action here, and it still could be considered at the council level. Okay. But this is really important feedback that the IRC IBC just had and the BFRW even had a touch on it, that the proponent can respond to.
Yeah.
The discussion.
Yeah. So, my part is still the LNI thing, because I just, working with them in the past has been, it's just more red tape. And are we eliminating them? Are we bringing them as a partner in it? You know what I mean? There's just a lot of questions on that. And we, because we talk about this in the tags all the time, is how complicated is this going to get? That type of stuff. So those are my concerns personally. But Tom?
Yeah, I think this is probably an important thing to keep alive, and not wait a few years for. If it's true that if we take no action on it, that it can continue to live, and get to the council with additional work and exploration done on some of these aspects that we've been talking about, the comments, at the national level, and the interaction with LNI, then that to me seems like a good approach. If it does take action by the committee to keep it alive, at this stage, I'd be willing to make a motion to that effect. But, I guess we need an absolute determination on that, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay. Katie?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking along the same lines, like in the interests of it appears that we're trying to reduce red tape here. So in the interest of that we would recommend that the council review this along with the additional information that we're asking for related to LNI and the comments at the ICC level.
Okay. Todd?
I think that makes sense. So if I were to represent the proponent, I think I can go to them, make sure they get LNI's input. I think we can get ICC's input on the process. because there is a committee that is leading this effort. And that would be relevant information to bring forward to the council. So I think a no action is an acceptable approach.
Okay, and then, but Tom, you were saying you were ready to make a motion then for this?
If one was necessary to keep it alive.
Okay.
Otherwise, if no action does the same thing in effect, then I would suggest we take no action and allow it to move forward on its own.
Well, I think, and Dustin, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like if we take no action, it does not kill it, and that the building code council can work on it.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Sounds like, is that what we want to do, is just no action right now? Let the proponents do a little more work. Obviously, they're going to need to, because there's some questions that will be asked again at the building code council. So is that what we're kind of working with here? And I guess if that's the case, then no motion is needed, is it, Dustin? We just,
Not on this particular proposal. What I would do is edit our spreadsheet to say this goes. That would be the modification on this one.
and that would just go forward when we make a motion to move everything forward. It would
Correct.
go as that. Okay. All right. I think that's where we're at. So I will take my pro tem and give it back to the pro tem. How's that, Todd?
I love it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Well, and I appreciate all that. That's helpful information. And I know the national level is interested in this, in our action on it too. So, okay, thank you. So now we're back to the main body of the IRC petitions. And the question still is open for council members or anyone in the public to discuss any particular petition. Otherwise, we're moving towards a potential motion to move the whole package forward to the council
Yes,
as recommended.
I would like to clarify that the
Mm.
package includes the reports worked on at the IRC tag level as well. Not a lot of changes were made. Some of the ones that are more visually apparent are in the significant changes report. All the appendices were added to there. That wasn't in the original version, and some of the recommendations have changed, but that's all in alignment with the recommendations of the proposals moving forward as well. So I'd like to move the tag recommendations on proposals and significant changes and existing amendments report to the council.
And just to clarify what you said there, the significant changes, the two reports were already moved forward and accepted by the council, but there are amendments to it that are now.
No,
Oh,
for
that's right. On
the
the
IRC, we brought them to this committee, and
Yeah.
instead of pushing them up to the council, we pushed them down to the tags for input in finalization.
That does make this different. You're right. Okay. Go ahead, Dan.
I would just like to hear from Angela real quick, because you heard from Patrick and I, that we thought it was ready to go, but I just want to confirm that Angela's, I think she is, but I just want to hear it from her.
Sorry, what was that?
So both Patrick and I spoke about, we think we're ready to go with it. I was the alternate chair. I hit most of the meetings. But I just want to hear it from you that you're ready with it also.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. So then I will make a motion that we move this forward in the process.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moving a second. Dan and Tom. Patrick, your hand popped up. Do you have anything to comment on?
Yes, unfortunately, I didn't realize until now that you're also trying to include the reports in that and I don't see them on the agenda. So I'm not sure how that works under APMA, OPMA stuff, unfortunately.
So we do have the reports posted for the meeting. And in the reports, the recommendations on what's happening with the 2024 code, there's editorial suggestions in there as well. The reports are part of the recommendation for the IRC tag.
Okay.
Good question though, Patrick. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, Patrick, I was seeing what you were seeing too, but if you look when you click on the meeting documents, it shows those 3 documents all part of agenda item number 4. So I can see how it all gets wrapped up together. All 3 of those documents are part of agenda item number 4. So that's kind of why I saw it.
Okay, again, important notes. Thank you. Okay, we're in the motion. Are there any other is there any deliberation on moving this package forward? Okay. Let's just see if we can do an oral vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Well, the IRC tag recommendations have been moved forward to the council with a full recommendation for adoption. Okay, good. Wow, thank you, Angela and Dan, and everyone involved in that process. That was heroic. Let's move on to 5. How are we doing on time? We don't need a break yet? We're okay.
I think we're
good. Okay,
All
we're
right.
moving.
Go
We're
ahead.
moving. Why don't you introduce it, Dustin?
All right, so we had a emergency rule request come in from the Washington State Association of Fire Marshals. And this one was talking about side yard access for firefighter access to for emergency operations there in the side yards. Concern being that with additional use of detached ADUs, attached ADUs on smaller properties, and potential for side yard setbacks to be reduced down to minimums. You know, somebody could build all the way to the lot line in the IRC with certain protections. This emergency rule sought to require where the primary entrance is on the structure that there be a minimum, I believe, of 5 feet side yard setback that will allow appropriate ladder placements to access second-story emergency escape windows. Allows for better ease for stretcher operations as they come out of the house. And just yesterday, the proponent who submitted this to me submitted a letter to the SBCC resigning all their positions on the SBCC and letting us know they would not be here today. I did not get a handoff on a person from the State Association of Fire Marshals to discuss this emergency rule request. And so I have a couple letters in opposition of this emergency rule. And so what would be the will of this committee? This was moved down by the council. A determination of emergency wasn't found, but they wanted the BFRW to discuss this particular topic. And so I can show the particular language. I can show letters in opposition, or I can show some supplementary material that was included for this as well. But I don't have a proponent of this emergency rule request online to speak for it.
I mean, I think we should do all, but Dan, obviously really weigh it, really lean on your guidance on this if you're willing, without meaning to put you on the spot.
No, I'm fine with that. The only question I have on this is because the council said this is not an emergency rule. What are the options? Because if it was an emergency rule, we could follow everything, we could get it in. Since the council has not determined that it's an emergency rule, and being new at the council and the procedural part of all this is, what are our options to do something with this? Because it's not an emergency rule, therefore we can't follow those and put it through that process and get it out, and it takes effect and I don't want to use the word immediately, but it takes effect within the timelines of an emergency rule. Since council has determined it's not an emergency rule, then what is this process now?
So this one, we received this as a petition under the Administrative Procedures Act. So that requires the council to respond within a certain time period. And we missed some of the time period. The proponent at the time was okay with the movement through the council, missing that initial stuff. So our time window was okay per the APA RCW. But I would point to 1927032, and I believe this was part of the discussion at the council where the emergency determination wasn't found. So we can accept, hold on, where I'm missing it. Here it is. The council may adopt emergency amendments to the code at any time under the following conditions. And this is the council is taking action on this. So the council denied the emergency petition per APA. We're coming back down to this committee to discuss this a little bit. So we can adopt an emergency amendment if the amendment is necessary for the preservation of public health, safety, or general welfare. And I believe that that is the characterization that was presented as part of the emergency rule. But the finding at the last council meeting was in alignment that it wasn't quite ready to go as an emergency rule. So we still have an option to take this, and down to the tag to work on. We can keep it at the BFRW level to work on. Or this committee could say we've reviewed it enough today and make a recommendation to adopt emergency rule to the council in accordance with this section.
So in other words, it still has to go through the council if we recommend it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure I wanted a little clarification on that. And thank you, Dustin. Being in the fire service, I think this is a huge safety issue. When we're talking about some of the emergencies that happen. And I think we've discussed all that. And, I think the proponent, Dave, did a good job of showing us pictures of, what happens in an emergency. A lot of people don't realize that if somebody's coding and you're having to do CPR and the amount of people it takes and the amount of space that's needed, I think it's a needed thing. But I'm just one voice on it. I know that Ken is here. I know he also represents at some of the things at WASFM. And then I see that Seth is on here. He's also a board member. So I'm just I'm also a board member of WASFM. And I'm worried, just like Todd just did with the last one, of stepping away. Where are my obligations, I guess, on that? That's my question on this for me as a voting member.
I mean, I think I would lean back to stuff that we hear from Dirk all the time, which is, we take the information presented and we make the best decision that we feel good about in relation to that. So as a voting board member, and a member of the committee here, is it right and proper to make this, and are we, is this truly necessary? I would say the first kind of topic of discussion should be, is this, necessary for, per A right there for the preservation of public health, safety, and general welfare. And it sounds like you have that feeling and would be supportive of moving this one forward. Now, that would be everybody else's own determination to make, as if they feel that this is absolutely necessary to do emergency rule, or is it need a little bit more work and consideration. There's 2 letters in opposition to this particular emergency amendment. And so maybe some additional deliberation, and I can pull those letters up and
Dustin,
go ahead.
I think maybe Dan was asking whether or not there's a conflict that would justify recusing your your input or
Oh.
vote from it.
Yeah.
And I would say, I'll give my personal opinion. I don't believe so, but I would ask the council also. I think it's important to have your vote from your seat
Yeah.
as the
Okay.
fire. Yeah.
Well, I just want to make sure, sometimes there's a very fine line.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure I'm not stepping over that line.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge ethical issue that we all face every time we do some of this stuff. So,
Do any other council members have objection? I think, or we can consider this publicly.
I appreciate your transparency, Dan. But as the fire chair, they're defining this as somebody who has that expertise. It is not unreasonable to me that you would have connection. If it was your proposal, kind of like what happened with Todd in the last one, it would feel different, but this isn't your proposal, so.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure
Thank you.
because, I am a board member of WASFM who actually brought this forward.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
But as the fire tag chair, obviously, preservation of the health, safety, and general welfare, I think it meets that. Obviously, I think there are people that think there needs to be more work, right? So, can you bring up the wording of it, please, Dustin, so we can talk about that?
What I remember was from the council meeting, and I don't think the notes are up, so I don't totally, I can't believe I don't remember this more clearly, but what we sort of got hung up with at the council level, to my recollection, was whether this was an emergency, and we didn't feel that we had enough kind of information about that, like related to how many buildings actually is this going to affect in the time frame that we're talking about, because under most circumstances, it would be it seems like it would be in a pretty urban area and all of that kind of thing. So I don't know if anybody else remembers it that way, but that was kind of where I remember the conversation going.
Yeah, I think you're correct in that, Katie, from my recollection also. And from my, the part that for me is the width, and it always comes down to, right now I think 5041 says when approved by the fire official, and what we get into with that as a code official is when you have numbers, it's a lot easier. You're not getting into those huge discussions that, well, last time you allowed this or not, and it's just very helpful when you have a number. In this case, the proposal says 5 feet. Then you can do that every time, as opposed to the generic that's in there now that says when you feel like it. Basically, I know I'm paraphrasing, but being in the regulatory part as a building official and as a fire marshal, when we have numbers, it makes it so much easier. You know, so that's one of the things that I really like about this proposal. From the safety aspect, is it gives a number, it gives clarity to builders and developers. So whether the number is 5 feet or 4 feet, 3 feet, whatever, it just makes it black and white. Here you go. Here's the number. You can plan for it easier than what is the fire marshal going to say at the time of development. The last time he gave us 4 feet, this time he's not. I don't like having to do code that way where you're just throwing a number out each time. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it.
Okay. Angela?
So currently the code does say that it's up to the fire official, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so there is something currently in the code where a fire official can require it. So, that's where I think it comes that down to it not being necessarily an emergency to put a specific number in. But then my other issue with the proposal is that it says that you have to have it to access to building entrances. So if there are 2 entrances to a house, does that mean you have to have 5 feet to each of them? So that could be an issue. And then lastly, I think the 5 feet is too much. Everything else is basically 36-inch minimums for stairs, for anything like that. So I would go with the 3 feet, because I think 5 feet is a bit extreme when you're talking about single family. But those are just my thoughts.
So just for clarification on this, Angela, and it's been a long time since the IRC for me, is it says for access to building entrances. Isn't the IRC basically you only have one in some aspects, right? The way it's defined. And this has always been a point of contention, I think, with that is what is the
So
required type of thing?
there's no, as far as I'm thinking, there's no required entrance to buildings. We actually don't care if you can get into them. It's all about egress. So then you get into, okay, so you have a front door, you have a back door, you have a side door, you have a man door out of the garage, whatever. Which of those entrances are you going to say has to have the 5 feet? Because it doesn't say one entrance, it doesn't say the main entrance. It just says entrances, which to me says every entrance would have to have this. If I'm reading it just face of the code, that's what it says. So again, I think that needs to be cleaned up and have a little bit more thought into how to get exactly what you're really looking for.
No, and believe me, I get that point because it's just like should it say required entrance? The one having
But like I
one.
said, there are no
Yeah.
required
No, I
entrances.
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe
It's-
primary egress door.
And then that's up for interpretation, right?
Well, there is one primary egress door where it's not allowed to be a slider. It has to be side hinged. It has to be 3 feet. So there
Yep.
is that. So I mean, that could be a way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you on that, Angela. I think it's very important that we look at that like you just said, a slider does not count as an egress because it's not side hinged. You know, um, I guess that I think this, and I think there's a lot of proponents too, or a lot of people that are against it. But those are the things that I think we need to work out. Um, and it's just coming up with, I guess, the right wording for that. So I think a little bit more work needs to be done. Is it something we can do here? I guess that would be up for debate.
Ken?
Okay, so I brought this up at previous meetings. So we need to go back to the 504.1 section. Remember, this proposal is a subsection of that. 504.1, I don't know if you have access to it, but it says exterior doors and openings required by this code, meaning the International Fire Code.
Sorry,
Or-
Ken, Dustin, can you roll down? Because I think that it's right there, right? Is that Ken? Is that copied out of the? Go ahead, Ken. I thought maybe it's what you're reading right there.
No, I'm reading. I honestly, I got too many screens open up, but I don't know what Justin's showing. I can tell you that. All I know is that this section of the fire code does not apply to buildings built under the IRC. And I'll walk you through it. Exterior doors and openings required by this code or the International Building Code. Doesn't say anything about the International Residential Code. And if you look at exterior doors and openings, you can go to chapter 10. Chapter 10, which is means of egress. Means of egress in the fire code says, hey, if you're building 1 or 2 family dwellings or townhouses, you go use the IRC. You don't use this code or that chapter 10. So I think that 504.1 needs to have the language added in IRC. It needs to be in there. I don't even think we can use 504.1 and then this proposed subsection for width 504.1.1 for anything that's built underneath the International Residential Code. So I think we still need to tweak that section.
I think we have a comment from the public. Jay Goldsmith.
Thank you. John Goldsmith, City
John,
of
thank you.
Spokane Deputy Building Official. When we're talking about the IRC in exterior walls, we already have a restriction from no openings in an exterior wall within 3 foot of a property line under the tables of R302.1 and 2, whether it be sprinklered or non-sprinklered, no walls within 3 feet of a property line may have openings any closer than 3 feet. At 3 to 5 feet, we can only have 25% of that wall that has openings. So we already have that built-in 36 inches, which is the same width of all the hallways we're navigating in there. So I don't see where we need to expand to 5 feet.
Go ahead, Angela. Thank you, John.
Okay, so actually though, to address the last comment with that built in, the pathway could be going through between 2 residences or a residence and a property line that doesn't have any openings, that the door's not on that, but you have to walk through that opening to get to the other side where maybe the opening is. So I think there's still could be room for this, and I don't know if you're it's making total sense what I'm picturing in my head when I'm describing it. But it's so you could be walking through a really tight area with no openings. So I think that's what this is trying to address.
Mm-hmm. A couple of questions I have. I understand the intent, so don't disagree with the intent at all. I'm trying to better understand what problem it's trying to address in terms of breakdown of the process of when we have a plan review and so forth. Because and the question I guess becomes, is this a a heavy hammer where to solve a problem that maybe is more of a potential breakdown at the local level? Because can someone explain to me when this doesn't occur, that the building official, the planning director, the fire official, aren't coordinated on this type of planning? Because I know some of the justification was 5 feet to ensure if a fence gets put in or if snow drifts and things like that, snowfall from the roof. But that doesn't seem to me like that justifies a prescriptive depth, right, to what is really more of a planning approval. Can someone tell me where I'm wrong on that? And I think maybe that's kind of the nature of the letter from the city of Spokane.
So from my understanding is this is occurring when you have basically you're putting a building on a small lot, and when you have the door, like and I always want to use the required door, and I know that's a problem with the code, but you have like the front door, let's just say, is on the side of when you have these 3-foot setback houses and then a fence is built. And the issue is getting a gurney out that door, turning it in that narrow area. I think this is a very specific, because like most homes that we look at, and even townhomes where the door is on the front, you have a pathway right up to the front door. And this is a specific issue that is occurring when we're doing infill lots, things like that, that when the door is on the side, and that's where the issue is happening, is what I think it was.
Dustin, you trying to raise your hand?
Yeah, when I'm sharing screen, it doesn't let me click a button. But when in the explanation statement here, this first sentence kind of, I think yes, it's got to do with the exits being on the sides of the building, but it's more about the ADUs going in the backyards and having good firefighter access and emergency response coming from those. So if there's just a 3-foot pathway and and I hear the comments that the hallways are only required to be 3 feet wide as well. But the pictures shown at the council meeting, shows, stretcher activities, and they're all piled on and walking on the sides to provide that life service that they're doing there. And so coming from the back end of a property where the houses might have, say 3 foot access going there between the property lines, and there's a fence there, and then you're running down a 3 foot narrow spot with a bunch of people trying to do trauma treatment on a patient, is what I believe kind of was, I think, more the
I think it's
need.
both. Yeah, both. Yeah. And I think those pictures were very, very good that David provided, that in an emergency, because a hallway is only, maybe 20 foot in a residence, but now you're talking a structure on the back of a lot, and you're increasing the amount of time that care can't be provided.
There's
So,
never snow in a hallway.
yeah. There's
Um,
never weeds and trees growing up, or, placement. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, understood. Okay, go ahead, Patrick, then Katie.
Yes, thank you. For the record, this is Patrick Hanks with Building Industry Association of Washington, and I'll note that on the agenda or on the meeting documents, we sent in a letter on this. We try to be open-minded to this, and grateful to the Fire Marshal Association for being willing to meet with us and kind of help explain some things and trying to figure out what their concerns are. I held a town hall with some of our members to bring this issue with them, and they largely were not in favor, didn't see a need for this petition. They feel like there's already lots of requirements, not just in the building codes, but you have local setback requirements that create the current effective enforcements around this issue. And they felt that this would override all of those without providing sufficient enough data to support the reasons for that. A lot of this comes down to, in terms of like the snow, it's property maintenance, which the codes don't really affect anyways. It's only going to affect the initial approval, but whether or not there's snow there or if shrubs or whatnot grow, that's a property maintenance issue that the codes don't deal with. One of the things I was really concerned about at first when they brought up was the stretchers. I think, that's a very valid thing. We want to be able to have emergency access to people. But as I looked into the minimum width requirements inside of the building, I was trying to understand why 3 feet is enough to get through a hallway, or sometimes less than 3 feet to get through a door inside of a building. You might have tight corners coming around stairs, but then all of a sudden when you get out of the building, having more than 3 feet is required. So I was trying to understand why, if you need more than 3 feet, then why doesn't that also apply inside of the building? And then a lot of the concern is this kind of overriding setback requirements and minimum fire separation distance, which the code already deals with. And then getting into kind of the crux of this, they say comes up because of the ADU, the recent ADU changes and expansion. But a lot of that only applies to the Growth Management Act and urban growth areas within the counties that are GMA planning. So in terms of like land, it's a very small part of the state. And we've all recognized that the code already allows local officials to, make those judgment calls. This is arguably going to be very narrow instances of where, if there is a real issue happening, it's not going to be in every single case. And so the code already gives them the ability to make those calls. But if we make this under the current language, it would affect all buildings, and that has a much far-reaching effect and going beyond ADUs. There's no real way to just have it affect ADUs. ADUs under the code are just another dwelling unit on a property. So we're, as an organization, not in favor of moving forward with this as an emergency petition. But if the committee chooses to go forward with that, I tried my best to provide alternative code language. I think Ken brought up some also issues. I'm not sure if 504.1 really gives you authority to deal with this, but tried to address some of those issues. And I also agree with Angela's comments that maybe going down to 3 foot is appropriate. But so tried, to bring up the issues and concerns I heard from builders to the committee to consider, and then try to provide some alternatives if you choose to move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Katie.
Thanks. Thanks, Patrick. That's really helpful, I think, and a good synopsis. I was kind of going along into the process of this. So if we were to find this an emergency, we'd have to do off-cycle rulemaking anyway to make it permanent. And I'm just wondering if we can just go straight to off-cycle rulemaking. It seems like there's still work that needs to get done and more but I being aware, or do we have to do the emergency rulemaking in order to get to off-cycle rulemaking? Or we're not calling it that anymore, are we?
Well, it's not emergency rulemaking under the APA. It would have to be emergency rulemaking for the council. Off cycle, where we can do an interim code adoption cycle that doesn't start more than or earlier than 12 months and must complete 18 months after the effective date of the codes. I do believe that we are outside of that window for the 2021 codes. And then the, substantive updates, I'm not saying this is necessarily substantive, but this is I would probably lump this into something that might occur on the 3-year cycle more normally. So I believe the path forward that we have, if the council wants to get rules in sooner than the 2027 code, we would have to do an emergency rule, continue to move that forward, and potentially explore the off-cycle rulemaking as we further that emergency rule down the road. But I think we're stuck in the emergency rule frame right now.
Okay. Sorry that we have to go through this every time. I just never remember what's changed and what's not.
That's
So
okay.
I do remember this from the council meeting too, in terms of the effect, like the number of potential buildings that are affected by this does seem really small, and I'm pretty persuaded that the fire official does have leeway to make individual and kind of individual assessments and has that freedom. And so I'm still not quite understanding why it has to be an emergency rule. That's kind of where I'm leaning right now. But if we have to make a determination today.
No, we don't have to make a like really the determination happens, like we can table this until next meeting. We could move it down to the tag to discuss. Ultimately, the council will make a decision whether or not the emergency rule is appropriate.
Hey, Dustin, and Katie, one more time. One, because I think I have it, but we have some other key stakeholders that I've seen have come on. I won't call them out, representing more of the planning side, unless they want to speak. Can you just explain in 30 seconds again why we're discussing this, even though the council took a determination last meeting that did not establish a basis for emergency rule?
So the council did not make a finding up for emergency at the last council meeting, but they did make a motion to move this down for discussion at the BFRW to keep it alive. Looking at the statute here, we would be needing to go to the APA. I guess I don't need to show you the APA to talk about it, but the APA, we got the petition under the APA. And we have to do an emergency finding and then file the emergency rule. So there's 2 motions that have to happen there. The motion for emergency finding didn't happen, and so we brought it back down to this group to discuss whether or not this is something that needs to be undertaken now.
Okay, well said. I just wanted to make sure we establish that with everyone. Okay, and then I think what we're talking about here, thank you, Katie, unless you had more, and maybe you can follow up to my comment here. I clearly support the intent of this and hope that there's a pathway, and assume that there's a pathway for this to be caught. And the part that concerns me, with some background and being involved I see many City of Spokane representatives here on the planning side. You know, when the city was going through this, and I had direct experience with this as a plan commissioner and as the president of the plan commission at the time. You know, when the zoning and development code reform is going through the mandated, but also the voluntary reform that needs to happen in the state. That first sentence about the how, you know, citing the housing crisis, and then it's because of the introduction of either the ADUs and the access to them, or let's say duplexes or other cottage housing that has now these new opportunities for access from the side rather than direct facing on a street. So I think that's the key question is why is this not being addressed from the planning standpoint? And why does the fire official and marshal not have the authority to, you know, why is there a breakdown between a planning director, a building official, and potentially, you know, the fire official? And one of the reasons that was cited in a previous meeting was the building code has a, you know, has a hierarchy above the fire code, but I'm still challenged on where the, you know, a building official is potentially abusing that or not understanding this. Why would something get permitted in an existing condition that doesn't have the proper egress, you know, from that structure? It shouldn't get permitted, right? But please tell me where I'm wrong. That's where my mind is right now. I don't think anyone's disputing the need for access, right? I hope not.
Well, I think where it comes down to is the amount of space needed. You know, is I think where a lot of it is with the, you know, obviously we've heard comments that the hallways are 3 feet, all that. It's where they're really having the trouble is when they're getting out and trying to maintain, you know, like if we taking somebody from a bedroom out, you're going like a 20-foot hallway, but then you want to get back onto the emergency procedures that you're doing to save a life. You know, and I think the more I think about this, I think it is a huge issue, but I also think it's such a big issue that it needs to be worked through properly. Um, and I think it needs to be worked through maybe through, and I don't know the terms properly, but not as an emergency ruling, but something that we should be working on to get in and getting the right people to the table.
Yeah. I mean, Dan, are there pathways that this can be addressed and should be addressed in by ordinance in development codes?
Well, it's, you know, when we look at it, you know, the development code is about development, right? You know, and some of the things that happen with this, and we all know this, is a lot of times there gets to be an adversarial type of thing that happens, which is very frustrating, you know, because me personally, I'm not against development, right? You know, and sometimes it feels that way, you know, when you get going on this, it becomes personal and that type of stuff. Um, it's just getting proper development, and that's a huge issue that we're coming to with all this that's happening. You know, the development codes, the zoning codes, and the fire code and the building code, there are conflicts, and it's coming down to it. And human nature sometimes is we get so wrapped up in it that it becomes personal as opposed to looking at it from everybody's point of view. And I think it needs to be a collaborative effort to make sure that we're not missing those things. I mean, you know, the law of unintended consequences, right? Some of these rules have come through and we never know what the law of unintentional consequences are. And this is one of them that has recently come up, right? So I think it needs to be a thorough discussion that, you know, I'm probably going to go against a little bit of what we talked about earlier as the emergency ruling, but at the same time, it's very important, but we have to do it right instead of piecemealing it in. So Dustin would have to help with that, with the like I said, I'm new with this, you know, if we're not going to do an emergency ruling and we're going to do an interim code thing, I don't think we have the time to do that this year.
And this doesn't necessarily, you know, if the goal is to get this into a 2024 document or the 2021, you know, we can do that. You know, we are under the gun for a lot of the work we're doing right now for the 2024 cycle, but that doesn't mean that this has to be done by October 1st or by December. You know, we can take the time to deliberate and make this correct, and get consensus from all parties involved, and make the emergency filing a little bit later. If we even come to that point, you know, we can still keep this one as a discussion topic, wherever it needs to go, to get it done right.
And I guess if I may ask a question here, just to go a little deeper on the technical piece here, because what I'm trying to understand is, if say you put in a 5-foot clear width required, you know, to a property line, I assume that means for access to buildings, there likely are conditions where it's almost guaranteed that there won't be obstruction and so forth, you know, to that property line, that we're eliminating a 3-foot or 4-foot setback. But we know, like, it's adjacent to open space or something where there won't be development. Yeah, we can ensure that there will always be a 3-foot clear or 4-foot clear pathway. We don't need that 5-foot requirement in the fire code to override the planning. Am I understanding the kind of dilemma here correctly? And if that's the case, then we've taken a heavy hammer of the fire code and overridden good planning and good design.
No, I think you're right on that. And then, you know, the more I'm thinking about this, I think we need to have more discussion at maybe a tag level, or even just a work group, and get the correct people in there, you know, planners and builders and fire officials, and come up with something that is an improvement, but without throwing the hammer down, I think is what we need.
So,
And I think,
oh, excuse me, sorry.
no, go ahead, Katie.
So one of the options that I think Dustin said that we could do is send it down to the tag, and it seems like that we're done with the fire code, right? Like we've already done our 2024. Okay, so now we can assign more homework to the tag, perhaps, to review this and do some of that work. And then if it were to come back up for a recommendation to address the semi-emergency. No, I'm just kidding. But to
No, I get it.
send it back up here to say now we can recommend it, you know, as the emergency rule that would take effect, and then we have to do that rulemaking within, what is it, like 180 days?
If we file an emergency rule and we want to bring that effect to be continuous across until a permanent rule comes into effect, we would have to file emergency rules every 120 days to make the effect continuous. We can only file the second one after we file a CR 101 explaining that we are doing permanent rulemaking on that subject. And then as that process, you know, runs its course, well, I'm thinking maybe also that with the new rule, we might have to do emergency rulemaking to keep that alive until we handle it at the 2027 code cycle.
I have a suggestion. I think we can find a better collaborative path without the emergency pathway. Dustin, can you pull up our I think it's in our bylaws, where we establish that we have the ability to simply form a committee, and it doesn't have to be council members. And I think this might be a case where this makes the most sense. If you scroll down to the committee section there, so there's standing committees, executive committee, legislative committee, MVP, which we're in, you know, are the BFRW and MVP, and the next one there, special council committees. We can simply form by the chair of the council, the chair of the standing committee, to create a special committee that, unlike the ad hoc, which is only of council members, we can bring anybody in my interpretation of that. Is that correct, Dustin? And so I feel this is one where we should bring planners in, bring, the fight representatives from the fire side, and just work this out.
Yeah, that was my question is a particular tag populated with the diversity we're looking to bring to the topic?
Let's just figure out who needs to be at the table here and that's flexible, and then they can make a recommendation whether we, and that can include entire tags if need be, but anyone in support of approach like this?
It sure seems doable. There's no doubt about that.
I'd be in support of that.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I guess I'll be the one to speak in opposition a little bit. I think, I think there's a little bit of burnout at the tag level. There's a lot of volunteers and a lot of hours have been spent over the last 6 months trying to get the 2024 code cycle across the line. So the idea of like asking people to volunteer more time, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I think you'll have a hard time getting people to really want to show up to regular meetings to discuss this, especially since I'm not hearing a lot of I'm not hearing the committee be real adamant about here's the exact issue, here's what we're looking for, and here's what we need you to do. It sounds like there's still kind of a question of if this is necessary. If you had a really strong idea of what the problem was and what the rough solution needed to be, and you're trying to form a work group to sort that out, that might take a little less time. But I've seen these types of meetings, they go for a long time, discussion can be circular, and then there's just more and more meetings. And I think the council's got a lot on its hands over the next several months with the 2024 code, and then the ad hoc tag work, and staff's pretty busy. So adding more meetings puts a bit of a workload on. So that's my input. I think the committee, it's been forwarded to you for review, and you should decide if this is something that you need to move forward with, and then have the direction on that. In terms of, I think if you, I've never seen a special committee formed, but I'm assuming that it would, because it's a council committee, it would have to be formed by council members. But you probably should check with Derek on that.
We will, but this is the one that says specifically in my interpretation, council or standing committee chair. But we would do it with the full support of the committee and or the council.
Yeah, but so that's just my feedback is
yeah.
Somebody's been on tag stuff.
Appreciate that, and that's why we're not proposing, or we could propose it to bring it to the tag, or we could, the more important consideration here is, are we including the planners and the other representatives from jurisdictions that need to be coordinated on this topic? So it's not the building code council trying to override other partners and stakeholders in that. Go ahead, Seth.
Hey, I'm Seth Henderson, Snohomish County Fire Marshal's office. Just trying to get up to speed on this. This is the first time I've been digging into it. I would be supportive of a committee to dive into it further, both because obviously there's been a lot of push to kind of find where that point is, where we're still meeting safety and meeting the needs of our communities. And I think eventually it's going to reach a breaking point where we're going to have to put the brakes on and find that. I do think that this emergency rule proposal that was made may not get through exactly what it's intended to do. Looking at the scope in the fire code of the application for the residential code, it lists what parts of the fire code apply to buildings that are built under the IRC, and it goes through construction and design provisions of this code pertaining to the exterior of the structure shall apply, including but not limited to premises identification, fire apparatus access, water supplies, and then it goes through some construction permit requirements. So I don't know if this will make the change that it's intended to do, and I think a committee could hash through the applicability of that change, and if if it's a change that needs to be made, maybe it should be somewhere else. And if it's a change that isn't need to be made, then obviously that can be hashed out there. In Snohomish County, of course, we're getting, same thing everyone's dealing with reduced setbacks, makes it difficult for fire crews to access, ladder climbing angles. We mostly see it on townhouses where there's a third story. They've got an egress window. Once the buildings get so tight, the ladder can't get to an appropriate climbing angle to rescue someone out of that window. So with two-story buildings getting pushed closer together, eventually you'll hit that breaking point of you won't be able to get a ladder to that egress window, and just makes the risk higher. And I think obviously with this exception here listed for fire sprinklers, obviously fire sprinklers are very effective in mitigating that. So I think the fire world always tries to build that into our proposals. But long story short, I'd be supportive of a committee and having it looked at further to decide if something should or shouldn't happen.
Okay, thank you, Seth. I think that was well said, and I think that's the intent. That essentially what we're saying, if I can regurgitate this, we're proposing to remove this from the emergency pathway. The council's already established there's likely not a basis there, but I think there are other pathways, including off cycle, because this is, especially if this committee is trying to find that balance between development codes, fire, building codes. We're balancing the rulemaking authority of the council with the jurisdiction authority and power to bring ordinances, and then that can either go down potentially a pathway of off cycle because it's tied to new state law. So that's where that first sentence actually is important. Or we need to ask the legislature for guidance on what they would like us to do, and that could establish a legislative mandate to address this. So does that summarize in everyone's mind? Is that okay? So then the question is, and we'll address this maybe of how we establish this council, whether it's simply through the chair of this committee, which I'm not, or the chair of the council. But I think to Patrick's point, it's going to be transparent, and we'll bring it in front of the council to make sure that that's acceptable.
Yeah, it seems since Roger's not here, it would be best to send it to the council to create that ad hoc, I'm sorry, not ad hoc,
Special committee, council committee,
I'm reading the wrong line. The special
council committee,
and have it be maybe part of your report, or because it doesn't sound like we have to vote on it.
We could take action if that was the will of the committee.
Mm-hmm.
So do we, in this case, would we need a motion to push it to the council?
I think we could.
Okay. So I would make a motion that the committee refers this to the State Building Code Council to come up with a, what's the term there? Not ad hoc.
Special council committee.
Special council committee. There we go. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. That's a motion.
I would second that, and maybe add a comment that it might be helpful to add some direction towards what the purpose of that committee would be. I like the way that I think you the previous public comment was about, getting, or maybe it was Todd, I can't remember, but, having planning be part of it so that there's kind of some understanding that we're trying to have some clarity for the council.
Yeah. I agree. And I think that it can be implied that we'll do that homework before the 25th, and then that can be posted of what the intent of this is.
Great. So I second it.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to recommend to the full council formation of a special council committee for the purposes of, now in that, is there another discussion? And my question in that is, do we need to take further action on the emergency basis, or we have accomplished what the council told us to do in looking at this further, and this is the action we push forward. I think it addresses it, correct?
I think we covered that one. And as far as emergency basis, I think that that's more of a topic to cover when we are completing our work and presenting to the council for a emergency filing.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion? Let's do a verbal vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Okay, thank you, everyone. I think that was worth the time. Okay, and then we're on to opinions now. Anyone need a quick break before we push through the opinions?
I could use one.
Okay, let's do I agree. Let's do 7 minutes. 10:47, please. Okay, welcome back. We're going to pick up, and our last item here are the opinions. We have 2 opinions to review today. So Dustin, I think I'll throw it to you, please.
All righty, give me 2 moments to pop those open. All right, here's our first one that we got. This one is currently in draft form. This is August 01 opinion for 2025, and this one's to do with landings at the bottoms of ramps at adult family homes. Then the question is, generally, is the intent of the Washington State Residential Code provisions to limit or address the maximum slope of a landing at the bottom of a ramp serving an adult family home? And if so, are the design parameters outlined in section R311.7.7 applicable to ramps as well as stairways? And based on my reading, and I sent this one off to Angela, and I think that you're in concurrence with this one, that no, the provisions of R311.7.7 are applicable to the landings of stairways only. And that's just due to the strict reading of the language in section 311.7.7, which states that it's for landings of stairways. And so I'd be happy to discuss further, or we did receive a letter early this morning in relation to this one. And so I'm happy to let the draft person of that letter speak as well. So anyway, I'll turn it over.
Okay, thank you. And just for everyone, in opinions, the committee has the authority to take action on that, or can move it to the council for action. I do see, well, I think one of the proponents, Jenny Nickerson, nice to see you. Welcome. Is there anything you'd like to say about this?
Yes, thank you for having me, State Building Code Council. The reason for this interpretation or opinion request, rather, was generally, as Mr. Kerr mentioned, to seek some guidance on the intended regulations or the intent of the regulations pertaining to ramps serving adult family homes. Based on my reading of R311.8, there does not appear to be specificity with regard to the maximum slope of the landing. However, AFH section of the IRC 330.9 does identify some references to that ramp section and indicates that there is an exception to that ramp slope that would not be applicable for adult family homes. Thank you, Building Code Council, for your assistance.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Tom. You had your hand up, but I see you dropped it.
Yeah, I was just an initial question, wondering if there was a different section of the code that addressed this, since the stairway one doesn't.
I mean, there's a section for landings of ramps, but it does not address the slope of the actual landing.
Okay, I see Dan.
There we go. Buttons are being slow today. So I did a little research on this, and I think you're correct that, technically the provisions are only applicable to the stairways. But when you look at this, because it is the adult family home, you look up like the accessibility, American standard for, that it does address ramps, and it says the same thing as the stairway one, that the slope shall not be greater than 1 in 48 when you're looking at accessibility. So the landing itself is referenced in the A117, for accessibility. So I think you have a couple different things here, and we always run into this when you run into that with the accessibility code. But I think that would kick in, and it's the same as the landings at a stair, which is no more than 1 in 48. And that, I'm always up for debate on that. But I think when you look at other things that can be here because of accessibility with an adult family home, I think the 1 in 48 would still be there with the 117. So just a thought.
Okay, thank you. Angela.
Yeah, I think this was definitely a miss in the code, but I don't think anywhere in the IRC it directs us to go to the ANSI for accessibility, correct? I don't know. I don't think it references that, so that technically wouldn't apply. But the DSHS checklist that the adult family homes are required to meet for licensing does have the landing requirement. So when Dustin sent me this to look at, that's what I had said, is I couldn't find anywhere in the IRC that actually dictated what the slope is. But in order to get licensed, that landing will need to meet that slope per.
Okay. Angela, we lost you. Are you muted accidentally?
Oh, sorry, I was done.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Okay, any comments? Ms. Nickerson, do you disagree or concerned with that answer?
I appreciate the council's answer. Is the draft answer what I should anticipate as the final answer, or do we anticipate that it'll be augmented to include Mr. Young or Ms. Hop's information?
Well, I guess that would be part of the discussion here
Yep.
today. We can amend this while we're on screen, and if the committee were to make a motion on this one, it would then be what you see on screen would be the final version.
And right, we have full editing capabilities right here. In fact, Dustin, you have Word open.
Yep, I'm ready to go.
We can make recommendations right now, even before a motion. So, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so the issue that for the landings really is a cross slope issue. And I heard the other person earlier talk about the adult family home checklist, and it does address landings and it gives a size for the landings, but it doesn't say anything about what the cross slope is. And the situation specifically we're dealing with is when you have a ramp that's landing on a driveway and that driveway has a slope. And I don't know if it'd be helpful to show photos of it, but what we have is a situation where you have a ramp that's landing on a sloped driveway, and consequently that driveway has a natural cross slope to it as you're going perpendicular to get up onto the ramp. So blending the ramp to meet that driveway creates the least amount of slope change as a person is going in a wheelchair, pedestrian traffic, or a person pushing a wheelchair up. And by creating a level landing pad in specific to like what a stair level requirement would be, meant that we needed to basically create this level hump in the middle of a driveway. And to access that, now we have greater slope on two different sides. And it created a less safe situation getting up onto that landing than just having the ramp naturally blend. So in my opinion, it's very specific. The fact that there's not cross slope mentioned on residential ramps nor in the adult family home code book, I think fits right in, because we're dealing with someone's where they live. And if their driveway has a slope, we have to be able to meet that. The safest way is to have as smooth a transition going from the ramp to the driveway as possible.
Okay. Okay, so the question is, are there proposed edits? Thank you, Jim.
It seems like it got more complicated.
As it does. Can anyone offer proposed edits, not just council members? Go ahead, Jim.
So reading this answer, what I'm interpreting in this is that no, the provisions of stairs are not applicable to ramps. Is that what I'm interpreting? So when dealing with a landing, cross slope is not mentioned in the IRC for landing. Is that an is that the right interpretation to say, okay, we don't need to jump to the commercial code, to the UBC for cross slope, and we don't need to jump over to the stair code for cross slope, that we're just dealing with the slope of the ramp as it goes up, which is specific. And in residential, it gives a code, and then the adult family home goes back to the residential and says, we don't use that 1 to 8 on adult family homes. It has to be the 1 to 12 or less. But neither one bounces back and forth and says, please use cross slope as part of the application for this ramp, whether it's a standard residential ramp or an adult family home ramp. So I think that's the question for the smart people in the room to say, what is the interpretation right, that we don't need to apply cross slope rules from other code books for the ramp itself or the landing that it's going on to?
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Go ahead, Angela.
Okay, I just found in the on the checklist where it says required ramp landing average measurements may not exceed 2% in slope. And that is on page, what is that? Is that 5? Page 5 of the checklist. And that 2% is going to be your 1 in 48.
But does that say in which direction, or does it matter?
That's all directions.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Angela, I am also looking at that checklist. Did you say page 5?
I believe, yes, that's what you said.
Yes. Yeah, it's the very first item. On mine, it's highlighted in yellow.
I apologize. I'm looking at the checklist that I have linked from the DSHS website, the 2021 Adult Family Home Checklist, and I'm not seeing that same passage on page 5.
Dustin, are you attempting to bring it up?
Yes, sir.
And maybe it's a proposed change because it's highlighted, but it just says, please note, required ramp landing. And this was from me Googling DSHS Adult Family Home Checklist. So, okay, so this is 7, this is 6. Yeah, on 5. Yeah, right there, the highlighted area, the yellow.
And just as this is coming from the dshs.wa.gov, so I'm not sure how this is linked on their actual site, but this is what comes up with the search of the DSHS Adult Family Home Checklist.
I think I may see the difference. The title of this checklist is the Initial Inspection Preparation Checklist, whereas the inspection checklist that the building inspector is tasked with completing during the AFH inspection is titled the Adult Family Home (parentheses AFH Local Building Inspection Checklist, Code Reference 2021 IRC. That's the page that I grabbed it from.
Interesting.
So outside ramp,
Is this look
max
correct?
slope of the ramp, landing requirements. So it's unclear why the checklist for pre-inspection has that, but the actual inspection checklist does not.
Okay, so then the question is any of this in our authority to make an opinion on?
Well, yeah, that's where this still doesn't change the interpretation. The codes, the IRC still doesn't address it. These would be DSHS licensing requirements, which we're not in charge of creating nor enforcing, other than building inspectors are required to go out and basically check things per their list for DSHS.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, we're saying the IRC doesn't address it and potentially the final checklist doesn't address it either.
Correct.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I will say, as a contractor that builds lots of ramps annually, and we do a lot of adult family home ramps, the challenge that we had is this interpreting what this code is. And had that 2% been on, what we could see, then honestly, I don't get to meet you guys. So because we would have just read it and say, yep, that's what we need to do, and made the plans accordingly. But we've built multiple dozens of ramps that have had landings that have gone on the slope based on what we're reading in the IRC, and without issue, and because it hasn't been brought up, whether through inspection or otherwise. So although the DSHS kind of does their own thing, because I deal with them on many other issues, because we build a lot of ramps for the state through DSHS waiver programs. But I think something that would be important from an opinion is for you guys to say yes or no, just to have something that I, as a contractor, can say, well, here's the opinion of people that are in the know. And so I think it's important to have an opinion, because that would help my cause when I'm sitting and trying to help a homeowner plan, an adult family home plan. And I can share the way that we built this hump was kind of a post thought to try to meet the landing requirement after a ramp had already had all the costs and all the investment had gone into having it built. And it really isn't, having this large level pad in the middle of a sloped driveway is not the safest way to go. And so I do think your opinion has value here, and maybe it's something that needs to be further pushed up, because there's lots of slope driveways and you have more adult family homes that are wanting to start. It would be a good thing to just know what those rules are, so that I, as a contractor, can read them and interpret them in the way that's going to pass.
Good comment, Jim. Thank you. Go ahead, Angela.
Well, yeah, I think that's what we're doing right now, is an opinion, which the opinion that's written is no, there is no slope requirements per the IRC. So it's not that we're not making an opinion. Our opinion is the code doesn't address it. I would, if this came across as if there was a code change proposal for an emergency rule to add a slope into the IRC, I would deem that as an emergency personally. And I wouldn't mind seeing that, because I think it should be there.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. Go ahead, Jenny.
Yes, thank you. And just for the councils, as a reminder, there are two general questions. I do understand that the council has some limited authority with interpretations outside the scope of the State Building Code Council or the Building Code amendments. And so really that first question, is it the intent of the Washington State Residential Code provisions to limit or address that maximum slope for a ramp serving an adult family home? If the answer to that question is something along the tune of what Angela was indicating, that It may be the intent to address it. However, the code does not at this time, and may be addressed through a future code revision or an emergency rule. That's a satisfactory answer from my perspective. I do understand that running that to the International Code Council may indeed be necessary to address slopes of landings at the bottoms of ramps in general through the IRC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. Thank you. So I guess the question here is, opinions aren't enforceable, but to be most helpful here, there's the very direct answer to the first question here, no. And then to more broadly reference it, is there a way to say that these are not addressed in the IRC? The best reference, until addressed by IRC, the best reference to our knowledge is the reference we gave on the preliminary checklist. What's a better way to say that? Is that where we think we're heading? And that's appropriate?
I mean, yeah, so I guess my thought is we're looking at the language specifically. We can adjust the question a little bit. I mean, the question was, does the IRC address it? And no, and it could be addressed in future rulemaking, but it is addressed in somewhere by the DSHS require, like, I don't know if it's a requirement or if it's a suggestion. It's unclear based on the documents we viewed today. I think that this one should, if there's an amendment to what we have drafted previously, that it should, point to DSHS, for the kind of planning portion of that, to bring clarity. Because our opinion here is not binding on a jurisdiction to enforce this way either. That's an important clarification that, this can be a tool belt to bring to a jurisdiction who might interpret it differently and say, this is the opinion of the council, but they can say, well, I choose to interpret it this way and enforce it this way, and that's their prerogative. So I just, pointing to DSHS in the interpretation, I think would be good. If this is going to be something that is used as a reference to, argue one way or the other, for somebody at a local jurisdiction, because there is a requirement pointed out somewhere, for, we're trying to bridge those gaps.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, does anybody have the final inspection preparation checklist up? I'm just wondering what the revision date on is, because the initial one has a revision date of July of this year. And so it may be actually more current.
Was that located at the bottom?
Bottom of the page, yeah, typically.
Well, and I'm wondering if, since we have a council meeting in 2 weeks, if we just refer this to the council and give 2 weeks to make sure and consider this a workshop, and then have some time to make sure we get this right and present in front of the council.
They've got the building code section, the IRC section, copy pasted from WAC into the bottom of this sheet. Yeah, I guess it's unclear what the revision date is on this one.
Maybe they are giving clarity to it in this initial checklist.
Yeah,
because it wasn't addressed in that one. I don't know.
When you scroll down, is that just copy and pasted? Do they have any authority to overwrite?
I haven't had a chance to really review. I mean, it looks to be, copy pasted. I don't know if there's maybe some minor formatting changes, but
yeah, I was just looking at the WAC on that, and it looks pretty much the same.
I apologize for interrupting, council, but I believe if you change the viewer of your checklist, you'll see the footer that I'm looking at on my screen, suggesting that the local building inspection checklist last rev date was April of 2025.
Where the heck? Change the view. Tell me which view I should use. I'm not that great of a user on this one.
Let's see. I believe I have mine on print layout, but I toggle my settings using the bottom right-hand corner of the word screen. So I've maybe just a different user preference.
Yeah, something's missing there. I'm not. Oh, that's what we got to do is that.
Hey.
The old
Yeah.
footer.
Yes.
There you go.
425. Yeah, what was the revision date on the one you were looking at, Tom?
7 July 25.
So it's more recent, but
Sounds like the question is theirs.
Wait, so I'm confused now too. So the one that has the direction on there is the newest or not the newest?
correct, is the newest.
So it does, so the newest version has the best interpretation right now.
In the preliminary or in the actual final?
It's the preliminary checklist that is
Okay.
more recent than this revision we're seeing here, contains the 2% slope requirements.
And that's the initial checklist, not preliminary, but
Correct.
Initials, thank you.
And so the plan is to then put that checklist, that name in the checklist. I mean, but it looks like they can make changes to this whenever they want. And so
I'd have to research their WAC to see if they have that codified.
If it's a rule or not. So that, I think that's what I'm recommending is what if we just take the 2 weeks, go do a little
Yeah.
research on this, coordinate with them, and then make sure that we give a meaningful and helpful opinion.
I was really hoping we could do it today, but
That's fine if we can do it on the fly. I just we're kind of researching on the fly too.
it seems like they're trying to clarify in that initial inspection checklist what was not addressed in code.
Yes.
It does.
but we can't write code in this. So we, even though we do, there seems to be agreement that the 2% is a good number and does solve the problem. We can't put that in there.
This is an opinion that's not enforceable and obviously not code writing, but but they're extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jim, looks like Jim has a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jim, I wasn't paying attention.
Oh, that's all right. So the 2% that's written on that new version that was a new, because I haven't been able to find that particular adult family home checklist. So that's something, what I'm hearing and understanding is that just came out in July as maybe a proposed thing. Which is understandable. I think the other issue, and this isn't the question, so maybe this might be another question, is it the intent of the IRC not to mention cross slope? Because the landing itself with a 2-degree slope in any direction, we went through and basically figured that out. So we were able to resolve that just for water drainage. But the issue is do you have to build a landing if you're on ground that is already uneven with a driveway? You have to transfer from that uneven ground to a level ground, and then it's cross slope on the ramp that is really the bigger issue. And the fact that we already had the landing was the driveway, so we just incorporated natural ground as our landing because it had the spatial requirements, and that's where the cars park. So the cross slope came into effect first. Well, the landing was already the landing. We would have to create a different landing to get one that was going to be level, that was apart from what the driveway is. And then because we just took a ramp and blended it in, the ramp had cross slope. So that would be a second thing that would be addressed, is cross slope on a ramp, which if you have a level landing that's required, then it's no longer an issue to have ramp cross slope because you're landing on something that's already there. So I don't know if that muddies the water, but the concern that I have is client safety and people safety, to make sure that we're doing things in a safe way and not trying to backwards say, okay, how do we make this work to meet a code? And we end up creating something that's less safe than had we just blended the driveway right into the ramp to start with.
So what about other ramps that don't land in the middle of the driveway?
So if a ramp does not land on a driveway, then what we would do is it has to have a landing of some sort. So when we construct or build a landing new, it's very easy for us to build that landing with a that would be a level pad, because that's better for us because we eliminate cross slope, and better for anyone who's going to use it. The issue comes in when we're going to land a ramp onto an existing driveway that has just a natural slope on it. The particular driveway that we had to land on had about a 1 in 10, 1 in 11 slope going down. And I don't know that I'm not good with the percentages off the top of my head. I used them for the sake when I was working through some of this on the videos that I made. But the question is can we use an existing sloped driveway as a landing pad? And in this case, had the rules been different, we could have told the homeowner, no, we can't use your existing driveway. We need to create another slope, but we still have to go from a slope driveway where you park a car onto something level. That has to happen at some point in time. And in this case, the easiest way to do that was with the ramp itself. But if we're building it to start with, it's very easy, relatively easy to construct something new. The problem is when you have an existing driveway, which the whole purpose is you've got someone in their car, you need to be able to get them out of their car into their wheelchair and then up the ramp in the easiest way possible. And that commonly is by landing the ramp on the driveway.
Thank you, Jim. Angela.
Well, but those landings, and see, this is why I think it's supposed to be in the code, is that it is a flat and level landing. Because if you're transitioning between a slope to whatever, if somebody isn't helping that person in the wheelchair, so say I'm in the wheelchair and I'm getting out into a wheelchair or whatever onto a slope, which is not safe. And so the intent, I believe, for adult family homes, just based on the clientele and who they're serving, it should be meeting accessibility and basic safety. So that's why this whole conversation is making me think that I need to put together a proposal of some sort. But yeah, this had never come up in our jurisdiction. I don't know if maybe we just made the call based on, we thought it was, a common sense thing, but after reading the code, it's not there. But yeah, I understand the conundrum between the existing driveway and stuff, but I just don't really like that situation at all. But currently, like you said, the code says you can do it. But whether it's a good idea or not is totally different.
And I would agree with that. The landings, as I understand them, are a place for someone is traversing a slope up a ramp to pause and reset. In the building code, they're required for larger stretches at intervals, and so you don't expect a person to climb a mountain or stairs up a mountain without the landings there. They're places to pause and take a break and reset yourself. And so, like, I agree with what Angela says that, currently it allows you to land in the middle of the driveway. And I understand that the required slope of ramps in the configuration of an existing building might allow you to land in the middle of the driveway. But, my feeling is that a nice level landing is kind of a tradition of the code. And I do feel this is a little bit of an oversight. And so I would stand by what we have drafted here, that no, right now IRC doesn't address it, but then DSHS might have some requirements, and that should be part of the planning process of, transitioning a home to an adult family home, is making sure that the requirements of DSHS are met. And then you come to the table with a building plan that's fully fledged out. But, those are my thoughts on sloped landings. Is I think they should be in all instances.
Okay, so I guess to move forward, do we feel we can either make an amendment and take action on this as a committee, or do we need time to bring a final draft forward to the council and take action in 2 weeks?
I would feel more comfortable with doing that extra research and bringing it to the council. It'd also be really great to get like Peter's interpretation as well if he's there.
Okay.
And yeah.
And potentially invite DSHS to comment on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel that way too. Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I would ask that you invite home health professionals, because I had one come out and look at the situation and assess based on her 3 decades of experience. Um, not just building people, but those individuals who are on the ground every day dealing with seniors and adult family homes in the home care world, for their opinion and perspective on what is the safest way to transfer a client from inside to outside a home with the use of a ramp, and not just look at, well, what does one code say, but actually people on the ground who deal with this, because it's a very different situation. When I first came into working with accessibility, there are things that the average citizen just does not have any idea about until you're dealing with someone who's in a wheelchair, whether you're a caregiver pushing them or you're the individual working it. And I think to me, that's what is important. This isn't we don't need to have this particular issue fixed for this client. We already did something, but having a long, researching it to say, all right, really, what is the best thing for adult family homes and for clients and caregivers in their residential home? That to me would be a great way to go.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you, Jim. And Tom.
Yeah, one last comment. I mean, I think that, as was brought up earlier, there should probably be something that does address the cross slope somewhere, because there's no way to get, in a straight line or even with 90-degree turns, to make that transition without a cross slope somewhere. So, yeah.
Well, I think it sounds like we're in agreement that we to move this forward and find a clever way to be most helpful and give a preview of where we think this could go. If that's true, can we hear a motion to refer this to the next full council meeting for action?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go Katie and Tom. Is there any other discussion?
I would just like to, I'm not familiar with a lot of people on the ground. So Jim, if you have some contacts, please invite them to the council meeting to speak on behalf of this.
Yeah,
Or for input in between.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, and I'd be happy to offer research based on what we have in this, because I have pictures, I have video, I have some commentary from people that are impacted, but absolutely, I'd love to bring that to the table.
Okay, that's perfect. Next meeting is in 2 weeks. So it's been moved and seconded to move this to the full council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Okay, thank you, everyone. I think that was
Thank you,
productive.
Council.
Hey, Todd, isn't the meeting next week?
We have scheduled for the 19th, but that is canceled, and we're going to be going to the 26th on our council meeting to allow additional draft time for our documents.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Good question. Okay. When you're ready, Dustin, I know you're catching up.
Just making some notes here.
Yep.
All right. So the next one is on the International Building Code. Let me pop that open. This one's got to do with permanent facilities in other than covered mall buildings. So I put up here the question, or the code section in question, because I think it's really relevant to a rather short question. So does the language "in a building adjacent thereto" mean that only permanent toilet facilities are allowed, not portable toilets or restroom trailers? And my thinking on this one is that a portable toilet or restroom trailer has the potential to be moved and in such a way, unless it's, part of the building site plan or something like that, and maybe the building official could let it go. But a restroom trailer that might be designed to be pulled off and have a tank emptied, similar to an RV. I think if it is removed and not brought back, would leave a building out of compliance with the minimum facilities tables of the IBC. And so, my answer is that, yes, permanent facilities are what is required. And I guess that when I read it now, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So does the language in a building adjacent thereto mean that only permanent toilet facilities are allowed? The answer is yes. And section 2902 determines the minimum amount of plumbing facilities required for a building. Not permanent or non-permanent fixtures, when removed, would render a building required to provide public toilet facilities non-compliant. And so I turn it over to the committee for some discussion.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Well, seems logical to me. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I'm just going to say the same thing. I think he's got it, that you would need permanent fixtures.
Okay.
Because it says conveniently in a building adjacent. So that means a building, and inside of a building would be fixed fixtures. Was that the right way to say that? That
I
sounded
believe
weird.
so.
That sounded weird, fixed fixtures. So,
When I was drafting the response to this one, I was envisioning, like portable toilets and something that's on more of like a flatbed trailer. Now, I also imagined say like a school portable building style building that it comes in and is set on the property. I don't know if there's any conversion of something like that that's towed down the road to make it real property, but I think that there is room for something more permanently installed that might roll in on wheels to be used. But I think that once it's placed on the property, it's kind of considered a building if it's modular. So, um, I, I had a little bit of waffling when I was considering this opinion.
Yeah, I don't, well, in terms of school construction, permanent means on a actual foundation. So it would not, a portable would be not on a permanent foundation.
Oh, well, I meant something that would like kind of resemble the portable style building,
right,
or a trailer that gets placed permanently on not necessarily a school property, but some other property.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, this doesn't apply to buildings that are temporary in nature, like emergency shelters and that type of thing, or does it?
I wouldn't say so. Like a temporary emergency shelter, could provide the facilities in, that's a unique situation. I think that the facilities are coming in that are going to be temporary as well, unless they're all contained within something that's in a temporary shelter as well. We hear about the dining facilities and bathroom facilities coming in on wheels for stuff like that. So I wouldn't say that this necessarily applies to those. I think using the term buildings is going to be the key defining factor.
Okay, it's marked for public comment. Is there any public comment on this? If not, it seems the next action is a motion to approve this opinion.
I move that we approve it, the opinion.
Thank you, Dan.
Second.
And by Tom. Any other deliberation? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And this opinion is approved. Okay. Good work. That was our last item. Do we have other business on the agenda?
We have the agenda item. We don't have anything specifically listed on documents or anything, but
Okay.
during our break, in a couple times throughout the meeting, we've talked about the council meeting upcoming. It was as a regularly scheduled going to occur on the 19th of September. It's been pushed out to the 26th. That's the next Friday after the 19th, to allow staff as much time as possible to draft our documents. And I just wanted to base on that.
Okay.
It hasn't been changed on the events page yet, FYI.
Okay. Well, the 19th one will remain there, and it's not my favorite part of the system, but when the meetings get canceled, there's really no indication on the main meetings stuff. You have to look in there, and then the meeting will say canceled. And so, but we'll get the 26th one on up there as far as the meeting goes, post haste.
Okay, yeah, because that doesn't exist yet. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Go ahead, Patrick.
That's a regular scheduled meeting, right?
I would say that yes, the 19th is a regularly scheduled meeting, and we're trying to run the 26th as a regular scheduled meeting, but I guess technically now that we're talking about it is going to be a special meeting.
Well, I think since you said the intent was to change the meeting date, I think under the OPMA you have to like post 20 days notice or something like that. You might want to check with Derek. FYI.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there is nothing else, thanks for a long week. We'll see a couple of you at MVPE, but otherwise, that was a big lift this week. So thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.